Right, glad to have you back. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has officially announced the shutdown of the Port Harcourt Refining Company. In a statement made available to the media over the weekend, NNPC confirmed the report that the facility would be shut down for a month for maintenance activities. Now, according to the NNPC Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Mr. Olufemi Shoneye, the shutdown will commence on Saturday, May 24th. Mr. Shunay added that the company is working with relevant stakeholders to ensure efficiency and transparency during this exercise. Mr. Shunay explains that the maintenance activity will follow global best practices and is expected to last approximately 1 month. He says to ensure uninterrupted supply during this period, NNPCL has in stock adequate volumes of AGO, kerosene, and other products. Mr. Bola Olojede is a finance expert, and he joins me to understand this development and many more. It's good to have you on the show. Good afternoon, Mr. Olojede.
Yeah, good afternoon. Nice to be here.
Yes, I think this is a news again that I think I would like you to react to. Now, Port Harcourt Refinery is going to be shut down for 1 month for maintenance. And I would ask, I'm worried. Just the refinery just got back to production maybe like a year ago, and now we are going on a 1 month maintenance. How does that really come to you, considering the level of productivity of that refinery?
Well, just like you, probably most Nigerians, it looks as if it is too early for us to start talking of a maintenance. Port Harcourt Refinery go back into active production maybe like 6 or 7 months ago. So it's not expected that we will already be at a position where we have to shut it down for 1 month to do maintenance. But you see, it is also because we don't see what the people at the helm of affairs. There is a new sheriff in town, and it probably had done a review of what was going on and believed that, look, if we're going to keep this thing alive, then it is better that we have a maintenance conducted. So it has made a decision to go ahead and have maintenance. It is better to do it than to be sorry some months down the line.
Well, what do you make of our local refining capacity in its entirety? What is coming in from the Dangote end and all of that, with the argument of the Nigerian first policy of government? Some say we shouldn't totally depend on in-house production. That's talking about refining. We might or must still need some level of imports. How does that also come to you, Mr. Olojede?
Well, you see, from the capacity side of things, we have not been totally transparent in speaking to those issues. On one side, you will hear Mr. Dangote saying, I can provide the need of the country. On the other side is the reality that importation is going on, as if there was never a Dangote refinery. I still remember vividly some of the late months last year, when we were said to have imported probably what was equivalent to what we were importing before, or in one particular month, maybe it was even more than what we were importing before. And you begin to wonder, so how do we reconcile those two statements? Mr. Dangote saying, look, my storage is filled up, I can provide the need of the country, vis-a-vis the fact that the country is still doing a lot of importation. Now, the other side to that view is to say, if Dangote Refinery is the only major one that is refining right now, there is a need not to create a monopoly or to find a way to dilute whatever might be the monopolistic effect of having only one private player supplying the need of the entire country. And that therefore, importation might still be required to moderate prices, or to at least ensure that prices will behave in the right way, because prices know that there is a competition price somewhere. So that is the other side, and it could be a justification, at least a temporary justification for the importation. However, over time, it is expected that some of the refiners will improve their capacity. There is the Watersmith, there is Aradel, there are a few other local refiners who have licenses and have been doing some little refining. If these people will expand their capacity. And then maybe people like the Boa Refinery will also come on stream at some point. By the time we have multiple refiners and the government refining, I don't have much confidence in the government refineries though, but at least we heard that Port Harcourt was, giving out products. I actually saw trucks, so it's not like they said. There were products coming out of Port Harcourt Refinery at some point, at least before he decided he has to go for maintenance right now. At some point, we're also told that Warri, but then the story from Warri has become not so straightforward, because at some other point, we heard that the revamp at Warri has failed. So as we speak, we don't know exactly the status of the Warri Refinery. The Kaduna Refinery is probably still far away from coming into commercial production. So maybe Port Harcourt is the alternative refinery that we can latch onto if we put it in the right shape and say, this is a refinery that can provide some competition to Dangote Refinery. Although the capacity of Port Harcourt Refinery, even for the few months while it operated, it shows that it's no match. It's nowhere near the kind of thing that the Dangote Refinery can put on the table, in which case Dangote remains the dominant player in that space locally. So the rest are imported.
Now, I like that. I like that. Let's look at the refineries you mentioned, some of the modular refineries and all of that. Many will say for them to function, there has to be crude availability. And that's part of the task of the new NNPC leadership, to improve crude production to over 2 million barrels by the end of 2025. In your understanding of what's been playing out in Nigeria's oil and gas industry, how feasible is that task? And of course, other task ahead of this new management of the NNPCL.
The oil is right there under the ground. And we learned that, I read a report not so long ago, maybe about a month thereabout, saying that there has been an increase in the number of rigs that became operational. Yeah. If we provide the right environment, more people will come into the field and produce more oil. It is possible. When I also think about the fact that at some point in 2022, our total production went as low as, I believe, 931,000 barrels per day. Today, we are in the neighborhood of the 1.4, 1.5 million barrels per day. So it's possible to increase production if we work hard at it. It is in the place of improving crude production that will be able to make available, the crude to those refineries that you mentioned, the local refineries. And I think part of the presidential pronouncement, or the NNPC pronouncement regarding providing crude, is that it is not just for Dangote, but for local refiners. So I want to believe that other local refiners will also have access to crude by the government. However, it is always difficult to share two chicken laps among three elders. So if we're not producing enough, what do you want to share to all these people that you're talking about? So it is important to be able to rev up production, which is a possible fact. And then we will have enough for government to sell and for government to make available to the local refiners, which is very important. Local refining is important for several reasons. The FX implications, expanding the production capacity, creating jobs, and so many advantages will come with local production. And I just hope we'll get there in the current year, sometimes along the line.
You would agree with me that some of the policies of President Bola Tinubu has actually helped to improve investment, I would say, in Nigeria's oil and gas industry, some executive orders, opening up that sector for investments. And that we've seen that been like a positive for us in that industry. Moving on, what more would you like to see that would drive that necessary investment? Because you will agree with me that investment is still needed, and that's why we have the PIA. But more investment still needs to get into that space, aside from what we have at the moment. I think the last check, the SA was saying that about $6 billion, if I'm correct. But I know there's been an increase in investment in that space. We've seen the Bonga investments and all of this coming in. We've seen divestment and we've seen companies come together. We've seen people getting into the segment of Nigeria's oil and gas industry. But what more are you looking at so that we could get to where we ought to be with our oil and gas industry? Because I'm one of those that believe that we need oil to diversify our economy.
Okay, you are right on the money when you spoke about investment. I believe that Shell alone had a commitment of about $5 billion for its new project in Nigerian offshore. So some things have happened also with NNPC. The change of leadership in NNPC is a very important step. And when you look at the caliber of the people that were brought in, there is so much hope that we can repose on them. That these people, they've been there, they've done that, and they can make a difference in that organization, that behemoth of an organization. Now, NNPC in itself, don't forget how PIA has helped us to get to NNPC Limited and all of that. There are other activities down the chain to say, look, this NNPC can actually run profitably like a private sector organization, make money, have an effective board, be transparent. And guess what? Come to the market and list. When you list, a lot of transparency issues are brought to the fore. There are minimum expectations of a listed company in Nigeria. The way we were going before, it would take a long time to get there. Or even if we get there, the success might not be that much interesting. But with the changes that has happened, that institution has been repositioned in such a way that it can build. It can infuse a lot more transparency. It can have an effective board, and it can chart a path towards actually being able to list on the stock exchanges, sell shares to Nigerians, let more people come in, let NNPC become more accountable. For as long as, since I've been a child, I've been hearing stories that are not particularly pleasant about the NNPC, whether it is the Fela song of the 1970s, the 2.8 billion naira that Fela spoke about, or whether it is the Gulf War windfall, or is it the subsidy regime of in the current republic. So many nasty stories. But I hope that with the new board of NNPC, that institution can navigate itself out of its horrendous past, chart a new future that can see our NNPC starting to look like an Saudi Aramco, like a Petrobras of Brazil, and several other institutions that are profitable and are not just huge institutions where a lot of leakages happen that are not accountable. And that is one challenge that I think the government has started. It would be nice that it will support that board to succeed and take us to where we need to be as far as oil is concerned.
All right. Now, before I let you go, let's talk about pricing. We've seen this flip-flop. We started at about 1,000 plus, came down to about 930, 950, depending on where you're buying. as at today, in some stations, at about 875 naira. Back to the issue of monopoly, where I've been able to speak to some marketers who told me outrightly that sometimes they buy products and in few days, some just decide to reduce the prices. And clearly that's a clear loss for some marketers. This is business. We're talking about business here. Some have to borrow to run this business. So what do you make of this flip-flop regarding pricing? I know it's part of the attributes of the PIA, but in generality, for business, how do you see us moving on with this pricing of PMS?
Well, pricing will continue to have the kind of pattern that we are seeing. Maybe not as frequent as we have seen it. If you look at some other countries, even in Africa, there is a template for adjusting the prices. The template already has certain variables. And once those variables cross particular threshold, prices are adjusted. It's going to take our people a bit of time to be able to get accustomed to that. But then it's not brain surgery, and I'm sure we will adjust to how this is going to work. If a critical variable in that template is the international price for crude, then it means that as a player in that space, you must be watching out for the price for crude, because you know that once A, B, and C happens, the retail price or the tank price will change, and you are in a position to adjust accordingly. So nothing meets you in so much, should I call it panic or suddenness, that you are unable to adjust. As it is today, it's a bit tricky for players. If you go and import fuel and you bring the fuel home, and then the refiner at home says, look, I'm doing better, I can drop the price a little bit lower, then you may have challenges selling your own because it came at probably a higher price. But eventually, things will reasonably even out. There will always be different prices, and that is how it is in other parts of the world. I lived in the US for a bit. I used to go about 2 miles to where I normally buy my fuel because the fuel at that particular station was cheaper than the one that were closer to me, as simple as that. So I just go there, I load my tank, and it takes a while before I go back to that place. So it's something we will adjust to. There will always be various prices in the market, and then the players will learn to calibrate and recalibrate as prices move.
It's a good way to live it. Interesting conversation with you as always. Mr. Gbolan Olojede is the finance expert. Thank you so much for spending your Monday afternoon with us. We appreciate this.
Thanks for having me.